You're listening to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, no, don't give up.
I am now.
There we go.
So Trav, I'm so excited to have you here. I think that this is going to be such a fun episode.
Yes, Jana, very stoked to be on. Thanks a lot for having me.
One of the things that we do on this show is we share stories of hope, because I believe the story of hope inside of you is the story of hope or a miracle that somebody else is waiting to hear. Our stories are really powerful. So do you mind sharing a story of hope with us today?
Well, yeah, for sure. Got many of them. But there's some, I've got a lot of that have, come from my experience, but, a lot of people, being the bucket list guy for the last 10 years, there's been a hell of a lot of stories that have come out of all the people that I've come into contact with, that's for sure. Depends on which one you want.
Well, I want one that's maybe going to lead us into talking about why you're the bucket list guy.
Okay, so probably the one that stands out the most, that I think would be the most applicable to your crew, would be I raised some money for a not-for-profit a few years ago called the Reach Foundation. The Reach Foundation was set up by an ex-Australian rules football star, Jim Steins. It was a full-on legacy. He's unfortunately passed away from cancer. But he set up this Reach Foundation. It was a personal development program for, wayward teens to come in, do some leadership and come out more personally developed. Love what they do. They said, thanks, Trav, can you come down and do a talk for the leaders of the Reach Foundation? I said, it'd be great. And that was in Melbourne. And I went down, did my talk, and the leaders of the Reach Foundation, there was no one over the age of, say, 22 years of age, and they were all teenagers that have gone through the program, graduated with flying colours, and now want to pay it forward to others and be now leaders. I did my talk, kind of what I normally do from the stage in terms of a keynote, and right at the end of it, one of the girls got up, one of the young adults, should I say, got up, and she would have been about, 19, 20 years of age, and she was absolutely bawling. And in front of everyone, it was about 20 odd, young adults in the room. And I said in front of everyone, what's wrong? Are you okay? And she said, yeah, I'm fine. Crying. She said, if my younger sister had been here to see your presentation today, she wouldn't have killed herself 2 weeks ago. And this was about 6 or 7 years ago that I gave that talk. And it was absolutely one of the most pivotal days where I really cemented my why of why I do what I do. And she taught me to go after, and try and put this message in front of more and more people, especially young people, because you never know who you touch when you're a speaker. You never know if you're there at the right place at the right time. And seemingly over the last 10 years of being the bucket list guy, I've been there. Luckily, I've been there at the right place, right time for a lot of people, and it's been really cool. And this, I guess, it's a message of hope, but it's more of a tactical game plan for other people. Where during COVID, it's been this bucket list message has been very much a light at the end of this COVID tunnel for a lot of people, and help them really. And that's where the book comes in. It's helped people really recalibrate on what gives them meaning, purpose, and fulfillment, and a sense of gratitude, which is what we all need right now. But she taught me so much. I got picked up from their offices. I had to go to the airport for another thing, and I cried all the way through. I cried all the way to the airport, and I just said, today's one of those days, where all the planets align and you find out your why. What is it? Mark Twain says it best: when the two most important days in your life. Mind you, I think this is the most quoted quote that speakers quote. The two most important days of your life is the day that you're born, the day you find out your why. And that was certainly one for me. But that as soon as you said, what's your what's your story around hope? That's the one that gets me.
By the way, I think that is a perfect story, because when I was looking at your platform, which you have done a beautiful job creating, all I could think about is the ripple effect you were putting out in the world. And when we tell our story, we really don't know how it's impacting people, and we may never know. But I promise you, whatever your voice is, whatever that message is, you are making an impact. I want to talk about the beautiful platform you've built based on this. And I want to talk about you as a bucket list guy, because when I think of that, I think that great movie, right? The two guys that are dying and they start checking off their bucket list. By the way, that's how I got where I'm at today, a bucket list.
Yeah, well, Jana, here's the thing. Whenever I speak, to groups, and, whenever I'm on podcasts like this, I say the movie is crap. Why? I've based my whole career on it. Why? Is because it's about two blokes, as we say here in Australia, two blokes that get given a cancer diagnosis and then they write their bucket list. Now, is something wrong with that picture? Definitely is. The fact is that people wait until it's too late. They wait until they get their use by date for them to take action. My whole mission is to wake people up before they get given a use by date, right?
Right.
We shouldn't pivot on our priorities or suddenly separate our daily to-do list from our bucket list and suddenly get into our bucket list when we're staring down the barrel of how much time we got left.
Trav, if I could talk to my younger self, that would be my message. I had to wait 100%. For that pivotal moment of dying to decide like what was really important and to just start making those things happen. And so I totally get that. My younger self, I would tell myself, like, do it now. Don't wait.
Yeah, and that's an overused meme, isn't it? It's like we all know it in theory, but I have had, again, I've been doing this for 10 years. So I've got to come into things like this and speaking events and keynote presentation, conferences and that sort of thing, and just try and jolt people out of their thinking, disrupt to a certain extent, not to get all these haters, but just to get people to suddenly go, oh yeah, time is really running out. So I really overthink, how can I actually give people a virtual cancer diagnosis when I go and speak? How can I give people that wake up call to go, you know what, I've got to stop just thinking about it. I'm going to do something about it. Because as you know, people are dying at 40 and being buried at 80. People are just existing and not truly living. People are living by default, not by design. And, the statistics don't lie. And this is the thing that really fires me up, that I've been through depression. It's a whole other story, but, depression is on the way up. Anxiety is on the way up. Suicides, youth suicides, the overprescription of antidepressants. We've even got this thing now called the loneliness epidemic. It's a real thing. Google it, the loneliness epidemic. And that's the adverse effect of social media. In America, 89% of people who go to work every day are what they call disengaged. Just 89% of people who go to work every day just get the paycheck and go home and not really into what they're doing. So these stats don't lie. This is my way, this I guess, bucket list filter, or this lens, which is, mind you, is all founded on positive psychology, which is about helping people experience more meaning, purpose, and fulfill more gratitude in their life. I've just put this brand of bucket list over the top of it. It's my way of helping people, or maybe helping change the narrative, change the conversation around some of these statistics, because they're frightening. They're frightening. And I've got 4 kids. What sort of a world are they coming into? So I'm doing my bit, but we've got to wait. We've got to somehow wake ourselves up. Unfortunately, it's pain. That's the thing that moves us. No matter what we do, we can set goals and toward motivation, but to get that initial inertia, crack that initial inertia and get moving, we need that away from motivation, that pain motivation. I've got a bit of a toothache at the moment. Guess what? That makes me go to the dentist. it's not because I want an amazing smile like yours. It's like, it's like, nah, pain, dentist, go to the dentist, you dickhead. So it's that pain that makes us move in the first place, but very, very quickly, we've got to peg it to something in the future that we can go towards and not just get away from pain. So I hope that people watching this, listening to this, can recognize the fact, but just be aware of the fact that they don't need any more pain to move forward. Think about the amount of time that you've really got left and start reshuffling your priorities, separate your daily to-do list from your bucket list and get moving on it. And that's what the whole book is about. And, I'm sure we'll unpack a little bit more about it.
We're going to unpack a little bit more about it right now, because you have the book, The Bucket List Blueprint, which my team just ordered because we want to dig into it, because we're all about blueprints for the mind. Our mind doesn't have a choice but to go where we direct it. So I want to know how you've directed that blueprint for the bucket list thinking.
Yeah, look, backstory is someone actually called me the bucket list guy about 10 years ago. I was in the personal fitness training industry for about 20 years. I was the first to franchise personal training studios here in Australia. Did nearly 2 million personal training sessions, tens of thousands of clients across Australia. And it was out of that, I always loved helping people, but there was some toxic situations and people in my life, and downward spiral. I slipped into a state of depression, albeit mild. I found myself in going, instead of going on heavy antidepressants, I went, no, I don't want that Band-Aid effect. I want to get to the root cause of my psychology, of what I was kind of going through. And so I found myself in, if you put on a course on back then, Jana, I would have signed up for it and run to the back of the room and then run to the back of the room of that one. I invested, not spent, but invested a lot of money on, positive psychology, NLP, life coaching, Carnegie principle, law of attraction, blah, 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 read all the books. And I'm still learning, growing, developing as we do. But I worked through some of my own stuff. And then a friend of mine at one of these things said, why don't you teach this stuff? And I went, light bulb moment, put on a talk, and it was crap compared to what I do now. But I put it on. I had to sum up the courage. And this is post me going, getting through a lot of the stuff that I was going through. And I put on a talk, and then about halfway through, I started sharing my list to do before I die. I always had one written down since I was 18. And I asked the room of about 40 people, who else has got one of these lists to do before you die? I quickly found out I was the only freak in the room. So I said, well, why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why are you building your business? And it's like, commonly pay off the house, put the kids through school, do a bit of travel when I'm older. I'm like, yeah, possibly sicker. So I started sharing my list, and it inspired the group. And then Joe, one of the participants there, said, right at the end, said, how's all this list to do before you die stuff? It's really fired everyone up. It's like a bucket list. You're like the bucket list guy. I went, ping, light bulb moment, went home and registered the domain name, thebucketlistguy.com, and I've been doing that ever since. And at the same time, Tim Ferriss came out with his very disturbing book of the 4-Hour Work Week. And I had all these corporate leases going on, around Australia, and I'm just burden. I thought, I would love to run shit from a hammock one day, like Tim. And this whole online world, as you can appreciate, this whole online world was starting. And I'm just going, oh God, that sense of freedom, being out, the romanticism of being anywhere in the world and running a business, although it's just a thing that we do these days, but it was very foreign back then. And I thought, I'm going to change. I'm going to go for it. Not really having a plan. So I got out of the personal training business, got into, the first 20 years of my life as PT, and now it's PD. And I knew I was going to be a speaker of some description. And that for me at the time was like the big domino that I had to push over in my life to overcome a lot of other things. So I went for it, and and subsequently it's helped a lot of people in the process, which has been really cool. But that was, that's how I became that, and the message has really been refined over the years. And I guess the hardest thing about, as you could appreciate, Jana, being a serial entrepreneur and staying in that lane has been very hard, because you're like bright shiny object, and instead of being an inch deep and a mile wide, I've chosen to be inch wide and go a mile deep, and go heavy on the philosophy. But it's mostly based on positive psychology, which helps a lot of people in all areas of their life. It's been really cool.
That's some of the best advice I think anyone could give, is to stay in your lane, like stay in your zone of genius, because you do get these shiny, like, oh, you could do better over here. But if you stay in that zone of genius, I'm telling you, you'll blow the doors off.
Yeah, well, I mentor a lot of speakers. I'm what they call a CSP, and having done TED Talk and all that sort of thing, I mentor a lot of speakers and thought leaders, and I'm always saying, pick a highway, then pick a lane, and then own the lane.
Talking about speakers, people are going to look at you and they see me on stage and they say, I could never do that. I when you said your first talk was shit, I remember my first talk, I literally ran off stage and threw up in a trash can. And I was that nervous. And what people don't understand is anyone can really do it once you start talking and sharing your passion. And I'm doing a podcast and I'm still doing public speaking, and I suffered a stroke that I had to learn to get my language back. And
Really? Wow.
When I still talk,
Good on you.
I will have words that are in my head and they sound beautiful, and then they come out and it's gibberish. And it happens to me.
It doesn't sound like it. You sound very eloquent.
Yeah. You know why I read your bio in prior? Because when I'm reading it and then saying it, it doesn't always come out correctly. So it might take me 3 or 4 tries. So a lot of times I read the bios in prior so that I can get through that. But we find ways to still get on and still get our message out there. And I just tell people all the time when I make that blurb, sorry, I had a stroke. I had a stroke before. And so for me to be here, it's a miracle. You know what they do? They start standing up and applauding you that you went and made something happen regardless of what's holding you back.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing that I know your people will love. We've all been through. You said shit, so I'm going to say shit. We've all been through shit, right? And let's not have a competition of whose story is more hardcore than the next. Right? It's all relative, right? Your own perception is your own reality. And we could definitely identify people that have had way worse than ours. Now, the reason why, if you've been through shit and you've come out the other side and you're in a better place now, there's a whole bunch of learnings that I want you to recognize, that I want your listeners, your watchers to recognize, that how dare you die? How dare you go on to another life, or whatever you want to say? How dare you end this life without paying those learnings forward onto someone else? How dare you die with the richness of those stories and the richness of those learnings within you? How dare you do that? That is not being a human being. Being a human being, I believe, is capturing those learnings into either a book, a podcast, a blog, a video series, or some form or another, or just a mentoring program or a coaching, a non-for-profit, whatever it is. But pay these learnings forward, because there's a whole heap of former yous that are just hanging out there to hear these stories. They hear these learnings, and they really freaking need it right now. So how dare you keep them inside you? You need to get them out of you and extrapolate them and give them, whether it be paid or free, whatever it is, but start mentoring. And it's extremely cathartic for you when you start doing that. It's not therapy, but that's what it's all about, is paying these learnings forward. That's what we're all doing, right?
100%.
So don't you dare. I'm challenging people all the time You know, like, go help someone with what you've learned. For God's sake, go help someone today. And I think that's the best thing that you can do to actually get over your own stuff. Go coach your former self.
That's so beautifully said. And I couldn't agree with you more. I feel, and the whole reason I created this podcast is I feel like the stories, our journey, the stories that we have inside of us are so powerful that when we unleash them into the world, it creates this incredible ripple effect that we don't necessarily always see. But this ripple effect goes out in those stories that start touching other people's, like these little heartbeats that go out and start connecting and changing the world. And you may not ever see it, but it's happening.
Yeah, and I think you can't do it enough. And you know, the thing with personal development and these stories is we're saying you don't know where it's going to stick. You know, and the thing is, I'm not here saying, oh, you must, you should, you have to, you need to do any of the stuff that I'm proposing here. You don't have to read my book. You don't have to, you know, engage in this whole bucket list phenomenon. I'm not telling you how to live. I'm just giving you, I'm putting it on the table for you to either pick up, map into your life if you wish. If you don't, you don't. But I'm certainly not telling you how to live your life. But if there's a gap for you of where you are now and where you want to be, then it could be worth, you know, bringing into your world. And you know, and it has helped a lot of people, which has been a double bonus. But yeah, and this might be the icing on the cake. It might be just right place at the right time, and people have to assess. You know, why would they engage in what I do? All right, well, do an assessment. 10 is the best, 1 is the least. Are you fulfilled? Have you got a feeling of fulfillment in your life right now? Not just now, but, you know, overall. Where are you on that scale of 1 to 10? If there's a gap, then sweet, read the book, do the bucket list, and then see your world, you know, open up. And I'm sure you've got resources as well, Jana, to help people close that gap. And that's what it's all about. Yeah, the last thing you need is a coach or a podcast presenter, you know, going, you should, you must, you have to, and you're like, no, you don't know my situation, mate.
I think everybody should have a coach. Honestly, I have a coach. I actually have 2. I have a financial coach and I have a personal coach that helps me with keeping my mindset on track, because I feel like the best investment you can ever make is in yourself, right?
Yeah, and if you're gonna be a coach, if you're gonna coach other people, you need to have a coach for sure.
Yep. And here's the other thing about coaching other people. What I've noticed, especially through COVID, but it was this way before, it's just even more so now, but the online businesses in coaching have become the wild, wild west. So they don't stay in their...
Don't even. Oh my God.
I'm saying don't roll out of bed tomorrow and decide you're a coach and go out there and start coaching, because you will do more harm than good. Get a coach, get certified, get some training, and go out and live your dream. But it's crazy out there right now.
How long is this podcast? I mean, we're going to talk all day, because I've got so much shit to say about this topic right now. Oh my God, the amount of 20-year-old, 25-year-old coaches out there that haven't even run a business or experienced life, that are suddenly out there as a life coach or a business coach. It's like, dude, go get some scars. Go run some shit first, and then at least speak from a basis of experience to a certain degree. I mean, you don't have to have listed a company or, you know, create this crazy app startup thing, or, you know, been to hell and back in life. It's just, yeah. I don't even, anyway. But yeah, like it's, I think the cool thing is, hopefully, look, people watching, listening to this, hopefully you're smart enough to look through the bullshit and see the people that have been in the game for more than 6 months, and people who have actually got client results, and that's what you want to look for, and someone that actually walks their talk. You know, I've 3 years ago, a very prominent business coach proposed to me that, Trav, why don't, you know, in terms of scaling what you do out, have you thought about having other coaches, teachers stuff. And I'm like, no, this is what makes me special. This is my thing, a scarcity kind of mindset. But after a lot of thinking and going back and forth, we set up certified bucket list coach. And now we've got, as of 3 years ago, we've got certified bucket list coaches around the world in 22 countries. And I'm founder CEO of that. But our selection criteria has morphed into more and more and more selective now, more than ever, over that 3 years. And they've got to have had runs on the board. They've got to have a network. They've got to have proven to me, have workshop experience, blah, 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 all these criteria of, and if you meet all those criteria, you can be one of our coaches. And I will give you, what I've been teaching, the methodology and everything that you can then, pay forward to other people. And that's how I can help more people, in my lifetime by scaling out through the coaches. And that's the only reason I've done it. But yeah, there's some really, knowing that world really well. Oh my God, where do I start? It's every business in the last 6 months has gone online. Every single business. Every business is now an online business, right? Yeah, but hopefully people are educated and they can, speak to people and look through the facade and see if they're actually, got credibility. Hopefully.
I totally agree. I think but here's the thing, people who are scared, who are like in a very dark place and they're looking for someone to help them with depression, they want hope so much that they will see it in places that maybe it doesn't really exist. But on the other side of that coin, where else? Like I was on my deathbed 9 years ago and I had a little laptop on my lap because I was too weak to get up. And I typed in those words, desperate for health answers. Where else can I type in on my deathbed those words onto the internet and literally extend my reach globally to find those answers? So we're in a beautiful place too, but we just have to be like really aware, start asking, start looking for red flags, start saying, can I speak to some clients that you've worked with? Like start doing your research, because not everybody out there has your best interest at heart.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that are very, very good at marketing. Very, very, very good at marketing. Just make sure they can back it up. Yeah, speak to their people.
Well, I am so excited to have had you on the show. I think you're amazing. And you guys can access Trav's podcast, The Bucket List, or grab a copy of his book, The Bucket List Blueprint, on his website, thebucketlistguy.com. Yes.
There it is. Yeah, and they can grab it if they want to get an autograph one. I've been putting I released it just before Christmas, so that was a nightmare. But released it just before Christmas, and talk about a battle of perfectionism and procrastination. It took me 10 years to write a book this thick. That's pathetic, isn't it? But it's really, the most important thing has really helped a lot of people, which I'm stoked about. People are being, and the cool thing is, and Jana, this is a challenge that I'll set to your tribe and yourself as well. Go through the book, create your bucket list, your future bucket list, and then there's a link in the back that you can send it to me. I want to make you accountable to it. All right. And this is, it's not just about ticking a whole bunch of cool stuff off. It's really about how we reverse engineer every aspect of our lives in order to make this stuff come to fruition. It's really about the growth of you and your people, the growth of you on the journey towards these self-imposed destinations. But what I want you to get really excited about and curious about, it's really about the you that exists on the other side. And that's the person you don't know yet. That's called our potential, right? That's what I want people to be curious, get excited about, because again, people are dying at 40 and being buried at 80. Don't become a statistic. There's light at the end of this COVID tunnel. People have been sitting down, whilst they've been in lockdown and quarantines and at home, and they've been doing their, family bucket lists, couples bucket lists, and most importantly, individual bucket lists.
Well, that is a beautiful way to end this. And we are going to have all of your links in the show notes. You guys can just click and join his website, go to grab his book, listen to his podcast. I would definitely grab some of this goodness. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jana.
Thanks for listening to the Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. Make sure to visit Jana's website, bestholisticlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, or listen there, so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show. That'll help too. Let's change the world together, one health expert at a time. Looking forward to seeing you next time.